Hi everyone, welcome to Reinforce 2023. We appreciate you guys coming out and spending a bit of time with us today. My name is Danny Cortagassa. I'm a senior security specialist here at AWS. I'm based in London. I support some of our largest media and entertainment and telco customers, and I also make up part of the AppSec focus area leadership team within our security technical field community. I'm thrilled to be joined on stage here with Megan and Joseph from Toyota Motor North America. Would you like to introduce yourselves real quick?
For application security at Toyota Motor North America. Speaking pretty fast. I lead two different parts of application security for Toyota. I lead our software development lifecycle security team. Then I also manage our red team. So with those two teams, we're able to get code scanning, security scanning, able to get vulnerabilities from development and also from our production deployments.
All right, and I'm Megan Lee. I am the lead for cloud security for Toyota North America, and my team handles all of the public clouds, so obviously AWS, a huge part of that, our vulnerability posture management within the cloud space, as well as the automation within our cloud actual security operations and some of the way that those actual operations go together.
All right, thank you. So, why are we here today? Yeah, thank you. All right, why are we here today, and what are you hopefully going to get out of this? So, we're going to talk about tooling and culture in AppSec and how both of those things work together to build a driving force within your own organization to help increase the security bar for the applications that you build and that you deliver for your own customers. We'll touch a little bit on how building an AppSec program actually helps to increase collaboration and helps foster communication across different functions. Your business function, your risk function, your security teams, and your builders. I'll hand over to Joseph and Megan a little bit later, and they're going to walk us through how they've built an AppSec program and embedded principles across different platforms. And then we'll start to wrap up, do a bit of some takeaways that you can take back into your own organization, as well as around how to measure such a program.
I'll just run for you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to start off with a philosophical question to begin with, to get everyone going. Hopefully, everyone knows chicken and egg. So I'd like to see just a quick hands up, who thinks the chicken comes first in this scenario? All right. Okay, a couple of hands. Who thinks the egg comes first? All right, more eggs. Cool, thank you. So now in the context of building an AppSec program, let's kind of run a similar thing. Who thinks that you actually have to build the right culture, build the right empowerment for the builders before giving them access to all the fancy tooling that an AppSec program would need or that the builders would need to run an AppSec program? So who thinks the culture comes first? Okay, good show of hands. Now, on the other side, who thinks that actually giving the builders the tooling first helps build the culture from the ground up? Okay, cool. So there's no wrong answer, but this is the question that I get all the time, is where do we start, right? Do we start with the culture? Do we start with the tooling? Can we have an effective culture of security ownership across the builder program, across the builder teams and the builder functions if they don't have the right tooling, but at the same time, can they have effective use of the tooling if the right culture isn't in place to begin with? And so we like to think of it as actually building a bridge from both ends. So you build both at the same time. And this objective is opening up a highway of applications that you can deliver at speed that the business needs, but securely. Now, on one side of our bridge, we have the culture. This is the culture that is going to enable accountability, awareness, education, and advocate for security and why security is important early. On the other side, we have the tooling. And the tooling is what is going to allow for secure configuration management, SBOM, secrets management, all those good secure coding practices and other things that are needed for the builders to integrate into their pipelines in a way that is going to help increase the security and apply that shift left principle early on. But by doing this, organizations are going to start having a more holistic approach to AppSec, where they don't over-index on one or the other. It's not just building the culture, it's not just building the tooling, building them both up at the same time. So we'll talk just a little bit about how we at AWS have done this. So up on the screen is our application security definition. Now, I don't expect you to read all of it. It's a lot on there. But what is important for this session is this bit here in the middle. It is supported by technology, organizational design, process, and culture alignment. So the entire definition really has two components to it. There's the technical components, the behavioral components, and having those work together is what is going to give you a more holistic approach to building an AppSec program. And within AWS itself, fundamentally, our objective is building and delivering applications, services, and features for you guys, the customers, at scale, the scale that you expect of us, whilst maintaining a high security bar. But to reflect that commitment, what we've done is we've built this culture of distributed security ownership, where the builders, the service teams, they have a responsibility and an accountability for the security of what they build. And there is a central security function that supports them, provides guidance, provides learning and enablement, but they are responsible for the security of AWS itself. So the service teams own the security of their service, and the AWS security function owns the security of AWS. However, we don't expect every builder, every single developer to be a security expert. That's asking too much. So what we've done is we've kicked off this Guardians program. Guardians are a community of builders. The Guardians is a community of builders who have already displayed exemplar behaviors for security ownership and security knowledge, and they volunteer to get wrapped into the Guardians program, where they get extra training on security. And what they do is they work within their own builder teams to act as security advocates for the need for specific security controls, but also enabling the builders to answer the questions as to why. Why is it they're doing this? Why is this important? Why is there risk involved in this? Where are the threats? And what are the mitigations that are going to help to reduce those threats? We have over 2,000 builders now that are trained as Guardians. And what this also does is this provides us a really important feedback loop back into our central security function in a way that allows that central security function to identify systemic issues, issues that are repeating over and over again, taking up time for the builders to fix, taking up time for the Guardians to answer these questions. And where they identify those issues, they can help to introduce new guardrails, new security controls, soft guardrails such as patterns and new designs and new libraries to help solve against those issues, again, with the objective of scaling and speeding the overall application security review. And so the program started back in 2019 when it was actually a from the ground up program where AppSec engineers realized that they weren't scaling at the same pace that the builders were scaling. And so they became a bottleneck because every feature, every service, everything that is shipped to you, the customers, has to go through a rigorous AppSec review process. Now, they identified there with the bottleneck, and so what they did is they started to influence change. They started to identify guardrails that are going to help solve the things that were taking up most of their time that were repeating over and over again. And they started training selected builders as the first set of guardians. They embedded those guardians into their own builder teams, into their own two-pizza teams, and helped those builders to start speeding up the AppSec review process by reasoning about the security of a feature, of a service, earlier on in the process, kind of almost taking that shift-left approach. And so by doing that, by the time that feature came to the AppSec review with that central AppSec team, they had already applied a lot of those security controls early. They were able to justify why they've taken these decisions, and the AppSec review then became a little faster. So what does the builder experience look like with Guardians in the mix? For each new thing that gets built, each new feature that comes through the pipeline, there's a new ticket that gets cut, which creates a tracker of all the security tasks that need to happen before moving on to the next phase. Now, what's important is that the builders get access to wikis and documentation which clearly articulates the end-to-end AppSec review process and clearly articulates who is responsible for what at which part of the phase. That racing model is really important to clarify who is responsible and accountable for what. The Guardians work with the service teams to start the threat modeling process. For each new thing that is in design, threat models need to happen. And that helps to identify possible threats to a particular feature or a service. The Guardians work with the service teams to build mitigations for the identified threats. They'll work with them to identify security test cases that are going to be needed to check whether the mitigations were sufficient to reduce the risk, the likelihood and impact of a particular threat. And then they'll work with the AppSec team as well through some of the final testing, security testing, whether it's automated or penetration testing, to get the product ready for launch. As expected, there's feedback and iteration throughout this. And what's really important here as well is that when there is a Guardian involved in the review process, the ownership doesn't move over to a Guardian. So as I mentioned earlier, service teams own the security of their service. The Guardian doesn't become that ownership persona for the security. They are there to bring security knowledge and support at the right time and at the right level. And that level might change. Some service teams have really good security knowledge anyway, and so they may need less input from a Guardian. A Guardian might be there to review the threat model and provide additional context and say, have you thought about this? What about this? And ask those sorts of questions. And other times, if the builder teams or the service teams don't have that kind of in-depth knowledge of security, the Guardians might get more hands-on, they might get more involved with the threat modeling and other phases as well. So that's a little bit how we do it. I'm going to hand it over to Joseph, and he's going to take us through how they have built it within Toyota.
Thank you, Danny. So, hi, everybody. At Toyota Motor North America, we've decided to address this problem slightly differently than how AWS has. And that's okay. That's the thing. It's going to be different for everybody. Not one solution will work for everyone. But I really want to start off with a quote here from our former president, Akio Toyoda, that when you purchase a Toyota, you're not just purchasing a car. You're also buying into the company itself. And in that contract, we are bringing quality to you. We want to make sure that there's quality in everything we do, not just our cars, not just the software. We want to make sure that we bring quality products to the market. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I want to talk about our SDLC in a historic nature. So what it used to be before we implemented this process, this security champions, as AWS calls it. So in our planning phases, typically we'll have our builder teams, our application teams. They will come with an idea. They'll come with something and say, hey, we really want to make a product, we want to make an application for whoever, for whatever. After that planning phase where we get the resourcing, we go into the development where teams will start doing their coding, they'll start getting their user testing, they'll start getting all of that fun stuff in the SDLC, like security scanning, they'll get their, sorry, I missed it. Then we'll move on to approvals, where they will get to the security teams. There will be the user testing where the business unit that they're making it for will make sure that this feature works properly. Then they'll go into deployment, where they will deploy it to either an on-premise system, they may deploy it to AWS, they may deploy it to a mainframe, they may deploy it to a car. Wherever this thing goes, that's where it goes. But something that we recognized was, at the very end, a security review had to happen, and it became a very big endeavor. There's sometimes in that security review, we'd have to go back to decisions that were made in the planning phase, where teams didn't think that, hey, I needed to account for a penetration test, or I didn't have to account for security thinking that this design was not okay. So what we learned in this is that, one, how do we make that security knowledge known at the planning phase? And then two, how do we make sure that we're giving our application teams the resources to actually do a secure SDLC, or to make their application go through this process in a secure manner? So what we learned in that is, while we're doing our SDLC, that some of the teams that were getting this scanning, they were getting this security review, that they would get results from our tooling and not really understand what it meant. They would get these findings, they would get maybe 200 items, possibly 10, of things that security is going to complain about. But what we found, and some of the challenges were, that the teams didn't know that this security alert meant that I had to do these actions to resolve it. And so to address this and to get some of that cultural change, next slide please, we decided to hack Toyota as the Toyota application team. We decided to, can we get with a application team, a builder team, a team that is already in production, already getting the security scanning, already getting the automated testing, to understand what the security tooling is telling them. So we took that team, sat down in a room, had a conference, talked about this is the security tooling, this is a cross-site scripting alert, what it means. You can do scripting from your application, as your application. From a very definition standpoint, it doesn't sound so bad. But then when you take that and tell the application team, that means I can deface the website. That means I can take this script and have you run it for me. I can take all the information that you know and do something with it. I could even take the script and have you tell me everything that you know, so that everything that you thought was behind a security perimeter wasn't the actual case. So in this exercise, after actively exploiting the application, talking with the application team, getting that buy-in from this one application team, we realized we were onto something. We realized that if we gave that one-on-one communication, that one-on-one conversation with the application team, that we were able to, as a security team, get what we are looking for, which is a secure product, and the application team is able to avoid that security review at the very end. And so what we did was we took this engagement and formalized a team behind it. Next slide, please. And so we have what Toyota calls our Security Engineering Embedded Team, as we refer to as our C team, pun intended. The C team has three critical pillars that they're built upon. And these three pillars is what really enables my team as application security team Megan's team is the cloud security team, to spread our knowledge, our expertise, and our standards through all the different application teams. So the first of these pillars is the security brokerage, which is being that security liaison, being a face that you can talk to, being a person that you can reach out to and be vulnerable with and say, hey, the security tool is telling me that there's a problem. I don't really know what that means. Our security engineering team is there, our embedded team, our C team, is there to say, that's okay. We don't expect you to know everything. I'm here to help you understand it, and also, I'm also here to help you outline detailed action items for remediation, because our goal is to make a secure product. In that same effort of being, in that same vein and heart of being the security liaison, they're also able to do some security engineering, where they don't have to come to me for every problem, for everything that comes up. They don't have to come to me and say, hey, our standard says one thing, and the application team is just not in a position to just pick that up and do it. Is there a way that we can address this? Is there something else that we can do? Is there a compensating control that we can implement for this application team that isn't to the letter of the standard? As the application security team, I want to make sure that, hey, our embedded in our C team is enabled to do that. And then the last one is communication and education. This final pillar is amazing for my teams. One of the things and challenges that I come up with is that I will come up with a standard, and our application teams, not being security professionals, are not going to understand what it is. They're not going to understand what it means. They'll understand that as the security team, we're telling them that this is what we need to do, this is best practices, this is how we keep a secure product in a secure environment. But that's kind of the end of it. It doesn't actually translate into, I need to actually change my database. I need to change my application to comply with it. It's just a security thing. And so our C team is able to take our communication, take our standards, create guidelines, create processes and procedures for that application team. Where at the TMNA level, the organization, we can say, don't put secrets in a repository. It's not safe to be there. Where our C team can say, let's use a specific feature of AWS that allows us to make just-in-time credentials, and then create this infrastructure and interface in your application to leverage it. That's so valuable from an application security team. And so with our embedded engineering team, our SDLC has matured in a Toyota way, Kaizen. Megan?
Yeah, so as you can see in our slide here, the difference between the process that we used to have with SDLC and the process that we have now is that we have C as the backbone for this process. So instead of security just coming in at the very end and saying, here's 200 problems that you have with your application, we can do preventative maintenance on it, where in the planning stage, we might be able to say, hey, we see you're using an RDS there. What type of data are you going to be putting in that table? What kind of security requirements might you need around that from the very beginning? So instead of coming in at the very end and trying to fix these things, we can get ahead of that conversation. And the great part about having these C engineers is that Joseph's team, they're great at application security. They're the experts in how the CI/CD process works, how pipelines work, how Git integrates with things. My team is cloud experts. We know everything about AWS that we need to know, but what the C team can do is they can become the specialists in that application team. They can become the experts on what that business unit does. And I'm kind of newer to Toyota, and one of the things that made this make sense in my brain is, think of it like when you go to the doctor. You might be feeling sick that day, and so you go to WebMD, and WebMD goes, oh, you have cancer, because we know WebMD always thinks it's cancer, right? Well, the C team can be there and go, hey, we know your history. We know who you are as a person, and we know, they're like your primary care doctor, right? Who knows, hey, your mom, she had breast cancer, so maybe you might be at risk for that, so we should maybe run this test to make sure you don't have it. Or hey, your dad had heart failure, so maybe we should make sure that you're getting that care up front to make sure that you don't have that same problem later. And that's what the C team can do. They can come in and say, hey, we know that your application, it might run in Java, so maybe these are some things you should know about this. Or hey, you might be running EKS or ECS, or you might be running an EC2, and here are the things that we need to do to make sure that you're putting that preventative security in place. And then they also are smart enough to know, because they're the security experts of that team, hey, this is something I don't know. You're coming to me with a problem. It's a little weirder than what I'm used to dealing with. So I'm going to go and send you to a specialist. We've gotten to the point now that we know this is something that you need care for. So you're going to go to Joseph now, because this is really something that's specifically related to application security. We need his team to do this. Or hey, this is a really weird cloud problem we've never seen before. Go talk to Megan's team. And that's the difference that we have. We're not just having these conversations at the very end. We're putting it throughout the process. You can go to the next slide. And so now we have the security enablement entangled with development. And we can kind of see, yes, we have the designs, yes, development's happening, and security enablement is happening. And they can bring in these specialist teams at the end to do the manual reviews that we can't do up front, where it's like, all right, we're ready to go live. You need a manual pen test, because I know that you're going to be facing the public. And we know if you're facing the public, guess what? You're going to have people trying to hit you all the time. So I'm going to send you to Joseph's team to get that pen test done, because that's something I can't do. But I'm going to send you to that team. Or we have a cloud accreditation process that teams have to go through if they're going to be in the cloud, where we're going to look specifically at, okay, cool, we have tools in place that do cloud posture management, right? We all do. So, hey, we know already from that cloud posture management that you might have these ports open. But there are certain ports that we can kind of know, 22 open to the public. I think everyone here probably knows you probably shouldn't be doing that. But what about port 80, port 443? Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. And those are kind of more question marks that are specific around your application. So we're going to bring in these review processes to try to detect the things that we can't detect with automated processes. We can't put things in place because the question is, we don't know. So can you go to the next one? So this is where we can kind of use the C team to be the arms and legs for our teams. They are having conversations with these teams on a regular basis. And they might come to us and say, hey, one of the things that I'm dealing with a lot, I'm having a lot of conversations with teams about KMS keys. They aren't using them correctly. They're not using them in the right places. They don't know the difference between managed keys and CMK. So we need to be having that in some way up front with them. So we can take those conversations and turn them into warnings. Okay, here's your alert from our posture management tool that says, hey, we noticed that you're not using a customer managed key and you probably should. Or, hey, we noticed that you don't have a WAF in place or you don't have logging enabled or something along those lines, and we're going to give you a warning about it. So you can go and you can fix that. And then we can take those soft guardrails and go, all right, hey, public S3 buckets. We've been monitoring this for a while now. We've been telling teams about it. We know that it's a problem. We know that they're addressing it. And now we're at a point that we don't have any that should be public. They're all fronted by CloudFront. They're all doing things correctly. So now we can put hard guardrails in place to say, we're not going to let you do it at all. It's not that we're going to give you a warning. It's not that we're going to come and talk to you about it. We're literally just going to stop it from happening. And so we use a combination of the SCPs that we get with AWS organizations, as well as AWS config pairing with Lambda to say, hey, you put a security group out that has port 22 open to quad 0. We're going to go and take that rule out. We're not going to get rid of your security group, but we're just going to say this rule doesn't exist anymore. Or you tried to make an S3 bucket that's open to the public, but guess what? We're blocking that at the account level. So you're not going to be able to make that S3 bucket. We're going to give you a warning that says, hey, you can't do this, and here's why you can't do it. You can't do it because we don't allow public buckets. And so now we have that feedback loop that AWS was talking about, where they can take those problems that we're seeing and turn them into actual fixes. And we can do that preventative maintenance as well as flush this out throughout the entire process. And we can make sure that we're preventing things from happening that shouldn't be happening. So I'm going to hand to Joseph to talk about how we got lessons learned from this.
Thank you, Megan. So some of the lessons that we've learned in implementing our C team is providing stable and centralized knowledge base. This was one of the key factors for that application security standards that I was talking about. We had implemented our standards, documented them, and they were the best documentation ever. But in us changing them and updating them, the links would change. The URLs would change. And a lot of our app teams and a lot of our business owners and our application owners would quick bookmark that link. So then when the problem came up again and they were going to that bookmark, documentation is nowhere to be found. At that point, the standard doesn't exist anymore. So they just move on. So what we learned was making sure that we keep our documentation in place, that not only when they bookmark, they can refer back to it, but when we update it, change it, update something to it, link it somewhere, that bookmark still works. So make sure that you keep your documentation in a place where it doesn't change for those who bookmark it. The second lesson was to over-communicate. Over-communicate your changes. Whenever we update our application security policies, or as Megan was saying, port 22 open in the cloud, you have to make sure that you say it, and then say it again, and then say it again, and then just for good measure, say it one more time. In this heart, we're able to make sure that we've communicated by mouth, communicated by email, communicated by bulletin, communicated by notifications, communicated by soft guardrails and hard guardrails. You want to make sure that you communicate constantly with the application teams, and our C team enables us to do that. Thirdly, you need to document and Kaizen your processes. You have to make sure that you update your process. What worked a year ago may not work today. What worked yesterday may not work today. You have to make sure that you're looking inward and making sure that the thing that you wanted to have happen, the security scanning that you have wanted to have happen, your guardrails that you wanted to have to be there to be enforced, are still there, and they're still applicable to the application teams that you wanted them to apply to. And then lastly, tailor your tools to the application teams and to the people that you need to leverage them. What good is a cloud scanning tool to a mainframe? Doesn't work. You're not going to get good security vulnerabilities or notifications or alerts from it. So it helps to find the proper tool for the proper team and the proper environment. Can we go to the next slide, please?
All right.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you. So, a couple of takeaways that hopefully are going to be useful for you as part of your organization. Firstly, listen to your builders. They are the engine to your organization. They are the ones who are going to understand what they need in order to make them more successful, in order to help them to understand what they need to do to build more securely. Seek ideas from them. Get them involved. That is such a fundamental piece to building a culture where the development teams feel included in it. Rather than saying, this is your new culture, whether you like it or not, you are going to be doing this and you're going to be happy about it. Rather than saying, hey, let's build this together. Let's take some ideas from you. Let's take some ideas from us. Maybe there's going to be some compromise backwards and forwards. But actually, by getting them included, by seeking their ideas and working together with them, you're going to have a much higher adoption rate for this culture, a much higher chance of success. And that is also going to help you to find the right program for your organization. We found ours at AWS. They found theirs at Toyota. And what you find may be different. It may not be. But what you should start with is an objective. We want to do this more securely. We want to build and deliver applications fast at the pace that the business needs with a high security bar. How you get there may look different from where you initially thought you were going to get there. That journey, that bridge that you're building may look slightly different. But appreciate that, because by being too strict, by being too rigid with it has to be this way, you may end up failing on that or may not be as successful as you wanted to. So by combining and kind of appreciating the learnings that you go, appreciate the journey that you're going to go on, take your builders with you, you're going to have a much higher chance of building that bridge and opening up that highway to build those applications.
Another key takeaway is to have an open feedback channel and then define the metrics for success. Without this feedback channel, you're going to create these environment and this culture that is you and you alone. Without making sure that there is a way that your builders, a way that your embedded engineers, a way that your guardians can give you that feedback saying, this works and this one doesn't work. You're not going to Kaizen that process that I was referring to earlier. And then defining metrics of success. No key metric is going to work for everyone. Mean time to resolution is a pretty good one. But what matters to you is what matters to you. Make sure that you capture what that is, and then just track it. And then another key takeaway is to provide opportunities for learning and development. You want to make sure that your builders, your embedded engineers, your guardians are able to learn. You want to make sure that you invest in that resourcing so that they can upskill themselves, giving that culture of, let's learn it. If we don't know it, let's go figure it out. But putting your head in the sand about it that's not going to be our culture. You want to make sure that people are comfortable around you to make sure that, hey, I may not know, can you help me out about it?
Yeah, and part of that learning and development portion, it goes beyond just growing your app team. It also goes to growing your guardians into your C team and finding the areas that might be problems. You might have a particular person who, hey, they have a hybrid environment that they're working with. They have some things that are still on-prem. They have some things that are in the cloud. So their learning is going to be completely different than if you have a team that's entirely in the cloud. And we need to be able to structure those conversations in that feedback loop to make sure that we're all speaking the same language and that we're growing in the areas that we need to grow in, and that the developers are getting better at security and fixing the problems that they're seeing, but also we're getting better at trading off the knowledge that we have. So if you have a particular C team member that is working with a team that is really heavy in AWS, we might need to give them more cloud security knowledge. Or if you have a team that really has a lot of problems in their pipeline, Joseph might have to give them more of that AppSec knowledge and more of that AppSec training so that they can have real conversations with those app teams about fixing the problems that they're dealing with. And that is really where that learning development has to work both ways. And then one thing that I think Joseph and I have both found when we work with these people is we want to encourage escalation. It is not a bad thing to escalate an issue, to escalate a conversation, to have a problem that your app team doesn't know how to fix. What's a problem is when we ignore that and we pretend it doesn't exist, that we pretend that we know everything and we don't need to go to Joseph or we don't need to go to senior management. That's where problems start happening. So we need to allow that escalation to happen naturally, and we need to be able to reward those behaviors.
Yeah, and I can't say it enough that escalation is not a negative thing. Getting managers, senior managers, executives involved isn't a negative thing, especially at Toyota. We want to make sure that the right people are involved to make sure that we progress, to make sure that that quality standard is still met. So escalating is a cultural thing at Toyota that we encourage and that is successful for us. And then rewarding the right behavior is really the missing piece when it comes to AppSec, CloudSec, and our standards. Because we're really good at saying that, hey, there's a problem and you can't move forward because of this problem. It's very negatively reinforced. Whereas rewarding someone who's doing the right thing is a much better way of changing that culture. Having your tools that can tell you when there is a problem, and a problem being a negative thing, doesn't mean that you have to communicate a problem to the application team. You can have a problem and then say, okay, as we iterate, let's look at how can we address this problem, but then also how can we prevent another problem, and encouraging that behavior.
And for me, like, gamification is a really good way to reward the right behaviors. Like, everyone likes a bit of competition. And where you have dashboards and other metrics like that that says, like, these are the teams with the least amount of security issues, everyone wants to be on the top of that team, right? Everyone wants to be number one on that team. If you have something that says, here's the team with the most number of security issues, like, that's a different connotation that comes with it. That's a negative connotation. But actually flipping it around and making it more positive and gamifying it a little bit is actually a really good way to get developers. I feel like, developers generally are competitive people. They have a competitive nature to them. And by saying that, like, we are the best development team because we have the least number of security issues month on month for 12 months straight, there's like some pride to that. And so by gamifying that, finding ways that work within your own organization to do things like that is a really positive way of building that culture from the ground up, making them feel included, making them understand not just the risk, but actually this is why you're doing it, and here's some good things that you get out of that. But then also with your guardians, with your champions, kind of however you call them, keep them involved, keep them learning, keep them developed, right? There's one thing building a champion and building a guardian, or however you want to call them, but actually you need to keep them. You need to keep them motivated. You need to keep them in that function. And so by keeping them learning, opening access to conferences or to extra learnings that other developers don't have, but these guardians do, is a really good way to keep them motivated, keep them learning, and keep them kind of pushing themselves to keep being good security advocates within their own organization. All right. So that's it from us. We appreciate everyone coming out and spending a bit of time with us. Our socials are on here. Please don't forget to fill out the session survey on the AWS Events app before you head off. We're going to be around for any questions. I'm also at the AppSec booth downstairs in the expo area and Ask the Experts, so you'll catch me there. But otherwise, I think it's pretty much lunchtime, so thank you everyone for coming.